here as part of Middletown Wellness Month that is sponsored by the Middletown Prevention Coalition. And I have some panelists here with me that are off screen, Lori and Lisa, that are going to be helping field questions from the participants that are at home. So I just welcome you to send in questions. They will find a time to get them to me, and hopefully I'll be able to answer any of them that come up. So tonight what we're doing is Baja Tacos and basic rice with some black beans. And I want to talk a little bit about tacos and why the Baja Tacos in particular, or the version that we're going to do, is healthier, because this is Wellness Month and we're really trying to take traditional recipes and make them healthier for people at home and give you some tips on how to do that. So traditionally, Americans, their exposure to tacos, at least mine, and I think a lot of other people's, is ground beef tacos in a hard shell that came in a box like this with a powdered mix that you added to the beef with a little bit of water, and you got your tacos. And while those were delicious, they weren't very healthy. So that's where the Baja Taco comes in, because the Baja Taco is actually traditionally, it's just fish and a couple of other items inside a flour tortilla. And that's the basis of what we're going to do tonight. But I'm also going to show you some other ways that if you don't like flour tortillas or you're trying to avoid gluten, that you can use corn tortillas. Anyone that has watched me cook before or has been in my kitchen with me knows that I like to provide a lot of substitutions and options for people, because I know we all have different lifestyles and different eating requirements. So what I'm going to show you right now is, again, while we're going to be using a flour tortilla in our final product, I'm going to show you some ways that you can actually prepare corn tortillas so that if you wanted to use them, then you would have that option. So one of the options, and again, we're trying to be healthier. Traditionally, they would fry a corn tortilla, and doing that with some kind of oil. And usually they're oils that aren't quite as healthy as olive oil. What I like to do is take, if you can see here on my tray, I've got corn tortilla, is take the tortillas and brush them just lightly with a little bit of olive oil. So brush one side, you can see it glistening, and brush the other side. And I'm gonna do this with 6 of them, that's what fits on my tray, and put them in the 400-degree oven that I have heating behind me. And I'm gonna let them crisp up for, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes aside, 4 minutes aside. I'll keep an eye on them. And you can use those as flat open tacos to serve the same exact meal that we're going to make on them if you are trying to avoid gluten, or you just don't like flour tortillas. I'm also going to show you in my pan, once I get these in the oven, I'm going to heat up this pan and show you a way that you can just warm the corn tortilla and give it a little bit of color and cook a little bit of the outside of it so that you can use it as a soft taco like we're going to be using the flour tortilla. And yeah, so I think that it's important for everyone to know there's no right or wrong way to make a taco. It's just the ingredients that you have in front of you and the ingredients you like and prefer. Tacos are kind of like pizza. There are so many myriads of ways that people enjoy them, and there are so many ingredients that you can actually incorporate. And I think you'll find tonight, because I'm always improvising a little bit, that I will actually have some ingredients here that I will be using that aren't necessarily on the provisioning list. And it's just because I have them around, or because I want to talk to you about how you can prepare some other options. So we will discuss that in a little bit when we're doing fillings. So I'm going to finish up quickly with these corn tortillas here.
Brigid, we do have a few new guests, so we might just want to remind them that if they have any questions.
Yep, I've been told that we have some new guests that have just signed in, so I'll introduce myself again. My name is Brigid and I'm your chef and host for the evening. And we just wanted to let you know that we are fielding questions. So if someone finds that things are going too quickly for them or has any questions they want to ask about the process or about food in general, they can feel free to send them, text them through, and we will work them into our program. So I'm going to pop these in my oven that's heated to 400 degrees. And I talked, last week we did a cooking demonstration on another topic, and I talked to the participants about how handy dandy it is to have a timer, and while listening to timers go off can be unnerving for some people, it's actually a really good idea to have one on hand so that if you're preparing a dish that like tacos that has lots of different parts, that you don't lose track of any of them, and particularly that you don't want to lose track of your chicken and fish that you're going to cook. And tonight we're doing both chicken and fish because I know out there that there are some people that fish isn't their favorite thing, but I'll be showing you how to cook salmon, and I have some mahi-mahi here tonight, as well as basic boneless, skinless chicken breast. So I'm also going to turn on my my stovetop here, and I'm using this handy dandy induction stovetop, which you might hear it humming a little bit, so that I don't have to turn my back to you to use the gas behind me. I'd rather be here so that you can see my face and I can be a little bit more connected with you. So I'm going to wait for that to heat up a little bit, and the next thing that we're going to do after that is we're going to, and this is a step that I didn't necessarily ask you to do on the recipe, and you don't have to if you don't want to, but I've drained my black beans that we're going to be putting into the rice already. So here they are in this bowl, and I've rinsed them. It's important to drain them and rinse them. They have been soaking there for quite a while. There's a lot of salt in them usually if they're not no salt beans. And I'm going to warm them up also after I finish with the corn tortillas in the skillet a little bit to give them a little bit of a start on their way, so that when they're combined with the rice, they'll just be warmer. You can use them room temperature and add them right into the rice, because by the time you get your rice off the stove, it's going to be piping hot. But again, if your rice has to sit a little while, it's nicer to have something warm going into it, and the life of rice lasts longer. So I'm here waiting for this pan to warm up. Hopefully it won't take too long. And these are, just the corn tortillas. They kind of are just floppy. You can make your own corn tortillas. People that are really into authentic Mexican food do make their own tortillas. But we're talking about how to do something easily here and have something healthy and fresh that's easy to do. So anything that you can do to make your life easier and get a meal on the table faster is benefit to you. So I'm just going to stick one of these on there and see how long it takes to heat up. Do we have anyone that wants to ask any questions before we get really started into this? Lisa?
No questions yet.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit while I'm waiting for this to heat up about the history, or the purported history, of the Baja Taco. Again, we're going to kind of morph it into my version of Baja Taco because we're trying to be healthy. The traditional Baja Taco has fried fish in it, and we want to avoid frying things as much as we can because frying things is not very healthy. So the traditional Baja Taco is fried, and they think that it came to Baja from Asian communities that went down there and actually taught Mexicans how to fry fish, because they were formerly grilling fish. And the Mexicans kind of Mexicanized the process by taking the fried fish and introducing all of their traditional ingredients to the fish, and made the Baja Taco, which is now a delicious thing that's found on lots of different menus. There are even franchises that are all about Baja Tacos. So let's just check our tortilla here. It's getting a little bit brown. The goal here isn't to make these crispy, it's just to make them hot and have a little color to them. So I'm just twisting mine around with my hands so it doesn't sit quite in one spot. You can do that if you want, or you can use some tongs, which I think I have around here somewhere, so that you don't burn your hands. My hands are quite used to a lot of heat, so I prefer kind of just using my fingers. So I'm sure that you can't really see that, but there's a little bit of browning on here. It's nice and warm. And I'm just gonna set that aside and do that with a couple of more so that when I treat my fellow panelists here later on, that they can try both versions, the corn and the flour. So I'm checking my tortillas in here to see if they're getting crispy. They are. I'll let them go a little bit further because they're not getting brown yet. I'll keep an eye on these other things here and keep spinning them around. You can see the pan's getting nice and hot. Be sure not to burn them or make them crispy because this particular corn tortilla we don't want crispy. The ones in the oven are going to be open faced and they will be quite crispy. It'll be almost like they're deep fried, but a healthier version because of the olive oil and because of using the oven instead of a skillet. So after that, we're going to put our rice on to cook. And in fact, I could probably start it now. Rice is really simple. Some people are afraid of rice because they don't know the whole put the lid on, let it simmer, don't touch the lid, don't open the lid, and it gets people a little intimidated. But it's really basic and easy to do. I'm just going to be putting 1.5 cups of water into my saucepan over here, and I'm going to turn it on and heat it up and bring it to a boil. And then once that happens, I'm going to put my rice into the pot with the water and turn it down to a simmer and let it cook that way for about 18 to 20 minutes. Then once it's cooked, we'll let it sit and rest. And in our particular recipe, we're going to actually add the beans to it. So, yeah, these are getting nice and brown, tasty. Let's check on this again here. Yep, they're getting nice and brown and crispy. It'll be a couple more minutes on the tortillas in the oven, and we can really get started. So I'm going to put this, again, as I said, this water on to boil at high. You can make more rice if you want. You just double the proportions. You can also use brown rice if you'd like. You can use any kind of rice you want. I'm using a jasmati rice, which is a combination of basmati and jasmine rice. You can use texmati, you can use basmati, you can use, if you're in a real rush, get a pouch of rice that you just stick in your microwave. Again, there's no judge here. You cook the way that it is convenient for your lifestyle. So there are all kinds of ways that you can modify and apart from what we are traditionally, the traditional ways that we're talking about tonight. So again, we've got these warm tortillas, they're a little brown. While I'm waiting for the water to boil, I think I'll just throw a couple more on here. I check again, see how crispy my ones in the oven are, and they're not quite ready to go yet. So with the water, it's 1.5 cups of water, and it's going to be 1 cup of rice. So I'm going to actually get that ready. And you can add butter to your rice if you want to. I haven't used butter in years because I'm a vegetarian and practically a vegan in most things. But you can use butter and you can add salt to it if you'd like. I'm going to season it at the end instead of at the beginning. So that's just 1 cup of rice. And I'll probably put another couple of heaping tablespoons for the pot because I always find that it's a little bit hard getting all the water to cook off if you don't have quite enough rice. that's warming up. These are cooking. So some of the items we're going to use to top our tacos tonight, I have here sitting here, and I'm going to walk you through preparing them. I have tonight scallions. I have some carrots. I have apple, which you might think is quite untraditional for tacos, but it really brightens up the tacos and adds another dimension of texture and flavor to them. In the recipe, it calls for lettuce of your choosing. I'm going to use, I have some cabbage, and this is just another example of how you can substitute. You don't have to have a precise thing in your fridge. We all have fridges where there are things that are kind of going off at different times and are ready to eat at different times. I'm going to use this because it's ready to be consumed, and I don't want it sitting in the fridge that much longer. And I can do a nice chiffonade, which just is a fancy way of saying thin strips of cabbage that are actually going to go really beautifully with both the chicken and the fish. And we will put some avocado out to top the tacos and some chopped tomato. Tonight we are going to be using jarred salsa, but you can also chop fresh tomatoes and make your own salsa. Add some jalapenos, a little bit of vinegar, some olive oil, salt and pepper to make your own fresh salsa. And another ingredient that I didn't put on your list, but I happen to have one here, and it's getting ripe, is mango. So the mango kind of is a nod to Baja, which is quite warm and is in Mexico, and mangoes are abundant in warm climates, and it's just another way to add brightness and flavor to something that we're not going to get the brightness and flavor from other ingredients. We're not getting super tantalized by crunchy tortillas and all of that. We're trying to stay healthy. So these are the last two of these. I'm going to just put them on my pan. You can see much more now that these are actually really, really cooked. And before I turn this off, I'm going to, I got my pot ready for my rice. So before I deviate, I'm going to pour this right in here. I'm going to give it a shake so all the rice is down underneath, and I'm going to turn it on to a simmer. And with rice, it is important to time it. So either time it on your phone, time it on a kitchen timer, time it any way you can, but it kind of takes the work out of it. It's just set a timer. I'm setting mine for 18 minutes, and then I'll test it. But what I'm going to do here is put a little olive oil in this pan that's nice and hot, and I might turn it down a little bit, because olive oil, it's important to know that olive oil, while it's super healthy, first of all, it's not worth spending a lot of money on an extra virgin olive oil and something that's really beautiful and flavorful if you're going to be cooking with it in a pan. Save your really nice extra virgin olive oils, expensive or not, but a nice extra virgin olive oil for salad dressings and drizzling on top of things, because the flavor is going to be lost once you put it into the heat. And secondly, olive oil does not have a high smoking point, and what that means is that you should never heat it above medium high, preferably between medium and medium high, because after that it starts getting too hot and it becomes decomposed, and actually a lot of oils that go above their smoking point, they become carcinogenic. So that's just a fancy way of saying they're not really healthy for you anymore. So while we love olive oil and I like to cook with it, I don't use it at very high heat. So if you want to fry something at a high heat, I would recommend peanut oil or ghee, which is clarified butter. And ghee actually has one of the highest smoking points of anything. I think it's 485 degrees. So you can actually fry things in ghee. But I'm just going to warm up these beans a little bit so we have them later. Just going to be tossing them right in here, and they might crackle a little bit because they're wet with water, and water and oil don't go together. So just be careful that you're not getting battered when you do it. And I'm also going to not lose track of my crispy tortillas in the oven. Oh, and I did, and I'm probably going to have to do overdone. But that we're gonna rest over there. I lost track of them. So that will just take a couple of minutes while we're cooking other things that are back and forth, but it's not really good. And if that happens to you, don't lose heart. Don't stop what you're doing. Just rewind and do it again. So
Brigid, are there other types of beans other than black beans that one might use?
Well, first of all, you don't have to feel obligated to use beans at all, but black beans are traditional. You could use kidney beans. You could use any other, canned beans. There are probably 7 or 8 of them that you can find in the grocery store. But the first one that comes to mind is red kidney. But the black beans are nice because they're so small. The red kidney, you probably end up smashing them a little bit when they went into the rice so that they'd be more bite-sized. So I'm going to turn that off. It's warm. These beans, I don't know if you can hear it crackling, but they're just in here heating up, and I'll leave those until we need them. So we have our rice cooking. I want to talk to you now a little bit about our protein. As I said, I have some mahi here, and I also have some salmon here. And you may say, wow, that's not traditional to have salmon in tacos, but it is delicious. And salmon is also a really healthy fish for you. And as long as you're buying it from a good source, it's healthy for you. I buy farmed salmon that's actually, you can get it organic, and that's the best. But you can use any kind of fish that you like. You could use sole, you could use halibut, you could use anything really. You could use swordfish. I just think that these two kind of give you the opposite extremes, kind of a whiter fish and a more robust, oilier fish. And the salmon has all kinds of omega fatty acids in it that are really good for you. And then I'm going to cook a little chicken also because, like I said, I recognize that not everyone, might have an appetite for fish, fresh or not. So I'm going to show you how to cook that as well. Speaking about fish, I wrote in the recipe, and I'll talk to you now about the different ways that you can buy fish. You can buy fish that either is fresh, which is what I've done, or sometimes I buy a lot of fish and I cut it up and I freeze my fish. I take it out when I need it. So you could have frozen fish that you've purchased and had in your freezer and defrosted to use. That's another acceptable way. Or there are all kinds of cryovac fish that you can buy now in supermarkets, and that's fine to use. Just, I would say, I can't tell you, like in this particular instance, I've got fish and chicken that I can see the diameter of them, so I can tell you more or less how long they're going to take to cook. I don't know what you might have if you went out and went shopping and got a frozen fish that's bagged. I wouldn't know the thickness of it. So I recommend in that case that you follow the instructions on the packaging itself to prepare that item. Otherwise, I might steer you down the wrong path. So for these items, I just want to show you kind of the thickness of it. If you can see the thickness here. I am a professional chef amongst being a business owner and some other things. So as a chef, I try and buy all of my fish and meat at a similar thickness, because then I know exactly what's predictable and how they're going to be handled in the oven, and how long they're going to take to cook. These chicken breasts are quite small, so I'm going to modify the recipe that I gave you a little bit. I think the chicken's probably only going to take maybe 16 to 18 minutes, and the mahi is probably going to take 18 minutes, and I would say the salmon maybe 15 to 16 minutes. So I'm going to try and keep track of all of that in my oven so that everything kind of comes out at the same time. But I'm going to treat all of the protein the same, and this is what I do every time I cook. I just lightly coat the fish or the chicken with olive oil and salt. I don't even use pepper in a case like this because we have so many other flavors going on. If you want to add pepper to it, great. Some people want to pepper their own meals. And I choose to use salmon that has the skin on. You don't have to do that if it intimidates you. Just make sure that either you're using a non-stick pan that's truly non-stick, that nothing's going to get stuck on bottom of, or that you are using parchment in your pan, or I'm using, you know, these casserole type dishes that are oven safe, that things rarely really stick to them. But the olive oil tossing is as much for flavor and getting a nice color on the items, but also to prevent them from sticking to the pan. So I am going to just drizzle a little olive oil here. It's really probably about, I don't know, a tablespoon, because these aren't very big pieces. And just show you what I'm doing. I'm just drizzling a little bit. And then I'll toss them around to coat them.
So Brigid, we have a question. Do you
Yes.
ever use an olive oil spray?
I do, but olive oil sprays are really, I find anyway, better for when you're cooking on a stove top, on a saute pan, or a griddle, or you're making an omelet. To use them in this way, you wouldn't get all the flavor. If you see it, this is all glistening. You wouldn't get all the flavor that you're going to get by coating everything in olive oil. And if you are using salmon with the skin on, you're going to find that your salmon's going to stick if you don't really have a generous coating of olive oil. And I'm changing my glove because I'm handling fish and chicken. And while it's not such a big deal here because it's a home environment, and I know that how the meat has been handled and the fish has been handled, I'm not worried too much about cross-contamination. It's nice to not mix the flavors so that you get a fishy flavor on your chicken, particularly if you have guests that do not like fish at all. So I have just tossed those, and I'm going to take a little bit of kosher salt, and I'm just going to sprinkle that on the top. It's just a pinch. I'll sprinkle it on both the types of fish and the chicken. Get those ready to cook. And because I'm cooking 3 different types of things, I'm going to leave them in these individual dishes and cook them at the same time, but separately, if you know what I mean. So we've got our beans that are warm. We've got our rice that is cooking. We have our poor little sad corn tortillas that got a little bit too crunchy, that I think I will probably attempt again, just because I want the ladies here to see all the different ways that you can actually present the meal. And how are we doing for time? Doing all right for time? I'm going to put these items in the oven right now. And again, it's 400 degrees. I know that there's some people that follow a recipe exactly, and they won't cook chicken unless they're following a recipe, and they follow the time in that particular recipe for that particular type of meat. But for me, again, I try and buy things the same thickness. I always cook at 400 degrees because it's roasting it. It seals the outside of the meat or fish right away so that you're not losing juices out into the pan. So I prefer to cook things at 400. You have to be careful that you don't overcook things, but I find it to be the most successful way to cook predictably. So I put those 3 items in the oven. I'm going to let them cook for about 16 minutes, and then just look at them because, again, the chicken's quite thin. And I want to make sure that it doesn't overcook. With that being said, better to err on the side of overcooked than undercooked, if you have a choice. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the toppings, and the toppings are really what tacos are all about, I think. So we're going to do two things. We're going to make a really simple taco sauce. And if you were doing traditional Baja tacos, we're going to use plain yogurt and mayonnaise and a little bit of kosher salt for just a really simple sauce. But you could equally, if you don't like mayonnaise or you don't like yogurt, you can use sour cream, you can use creme fraiche, you can substitute just the yogurt if you like mayonnaise, but you don't like yogurt, you can just mix it with mayonnaise and sour cream. Again, if you don't like the mayonnaise, but you like the yogurt and the sour cream, you can mix those together. It doesn't matter. You're going to get something that's a little acidic and bright, and it's going to go great to offset the meaty flavors of the fish and the chicken, and offset with the vegetables, the raw stuff that you're going to be adding to the tacos. So to do that, there's a recipe included in your packet. It's really, really simple. We're just going to put 1/3 cup of mayonnaise and 1/4 cup of plain yogurt and mix them together with a little bit of salt. So I'm going to answer a question in case it comes up before it's even asked. You can use veggies if you want to. If you're not eating eggs, you can make fresh mayonnaise. That's quite nice. But I'm just going to use an organic mayonnaise that I bought at the grocery store.
Brigid, at a Mexican restaurant, they advertised crema on top of some of the tacos. What exactly is the crema?
I don't know precisely what the product is in Mexico. I would guess here that they are substituting something like this to make it. But crema, if traditional Baja tacos have the crema on them, and they are actually it's got cilantro in it, which I'm avoiding tonight because without interviewing people in advance, my two fellow panelists here, I did not know that they actually love cilantro. But people either love cilantro or hate it. And the people that hate it don't hate it because it's terrible and they just hate it. They have a chemical reaction in their mouth to it, and you're just born that way, that makes it taste really horrible. So I was avoiding that. And also with the traditional Baja taco, you'd use lime. And I chose not to do that again tonight because I'm going to introduce some other brightening flavors that I don't want to collide with the lime. So I'm going to put 1/4 cup of the yogurt in here too. You don't have to measure and be precise, just generally get where you want to be. I'm going to put a little bit of this kosher salt. So all I've got is the two items in the bowl together, the mayonnaise and the yogurt. And I'm going to stir them together with a little bit of salt, not too much. You can always season it again later. Another thing about, now that I just said seasoning, to know about seasoning is cold items require a lot more seasoning than warm items. They hit your palate differently. The heat of foods tends to expand flavors and makes it seem like there's more salt or pepper or whatever seasoning you have on it, where cold items require more because you don't have that warmth to open your taste buds to the flavors. So this is literally just turns into a nice light cream that you can drizzle on the top of your tacos when they are done. I'm going to check the timer on the rice. Has about a minute left before it's supposed to have absorbed all its water. And I'm gonna cheat, even though they tell you never to lift the lid. I'm going to make sure that the water is absorbed. I don't want it to overcook because it'll just burn and stick to the bottom of the pan, but I don't want it to be watery. I want it to be nice and fluffy. And that's what basmati and its offshoot kind of rices are supposed to be. So we've got the sauce made, and it's just going to sit there until we're ready to combine it with the other ingredients. And now we're going to prepare these sides. I'm going to prepare them because tacos are usually, we have Taco Tuesdays in our house every Tuesday, but it's a nice thing to just section off the toppings and let people pass them around and share them. So I'll probably put all of our toppings together onto one of these trays. Okay, so the item that I'm adding that isn't on your list, I don't know if you can really see in there. These are onions that I pickled today. It's really, really simple recipe to pickle them. It's about 1 red onion, a half a cup of apple cider vinegar. Again, you could use another type of vinegar if you want to. Apple cider vinegar just has a nice, robust, tangy flavor. And a tablespoon of sugar and 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. You just mix them together, put them in the fridge for an hour, and you have these super bright, delicious, colorful items that you can put on top of your tacos. They're absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to check the rice. As I said, I was going to open the lid and put the lid right back on. The rice is cooked, so I'm just going to let it sit there and rest. And you want to get it while it's resting, get it off the burner it was cooking on, because that burner, whether it's gas or electric, is going to still be hot for a very long time with residual heat, and it may make your rice stick to the bottom of the pan, and you don't want that. So, or at least I don't think you want that. So we prepared the taco sauce. Again, I said we were going to use this cabbage. If you look at the inside of the cabbage, there's this kind of triangular piece in the middle, which is the core of the cabbage. And we, I'm gonna put that on for the fish. We don't want that. It's very tough. It's not really edible. So we're gonna just cut that out. Put it in our scraps bin. And then you can just start anywhere you really want. And just start thinly slicing the cabbage, or if you already have iceberg, you would treat the same way as cabbage. You cut just to have it, cut the core out, and then start slicing it into thin slices. And we just call this a chiffonade, but it's just a fancy way for saying slice thin. I'm going to put that right out on this plate here. That's my first topping item. And if you have lettuce that is either bagged, a mix, bagged, or in a one of those plastic containers they sell them in, those are fine too. You can use that as well. I kind of like the chiffonade part because they are stringier and easier to kind of get in a taco, and whereas the big leaves are a little bit harder. And again, we want to get a little bit of everything into the taco, so the more bite-sized, the better. I hear some things crackling in my oven, which is good. So that's the chiffonade. These I'm going to just leave in the bowl so that they don't get the juices in them and kind of intermix with everything else. These are really, you know, the ladies are going to taste them later, but they're delicious. I would recommend just making some now and again and putting on almost anything with salad, putting as a side to whatever you're cooking for dinner.